In part 1, we had unboxed all important components. In this video, we will install all essential parts on our motherboard outside the cabinet. This would help make sure all components are working fine and compatible to each other. Troubleshooting components outside the chassis or cabinet in open space is a lot easier. If you liked my videos, please like, share, subscribe and ring the bell. Now let's begin. We should carefully choose a non-conducting stable platform. I decided to start the build on the box that came along with my motherboard. You may also have noticed the white anti-static gloves on my hands. I touched my plugged-in power supply kept by my side from time to time to discharge any gathered static electricity on my body. No need to power on the power supply. It just have to be plugged into a wall socket to ground any static. Static electricity could easily damage your PC components when they get discharged onto them. Also make sure there is no conducting substance or screws underneath the motherboard to prevent short circuit. Let's first install the processor, the central processing unit. Open the CPU socket on the motherboard. Carefully place the CPU, matching the small triangle symbol at the corner, into the socket without applying any pressure. For me, it just dropped into place. Close the CPU socket by pressing its lever back in place. Next is RAM. Slide open the notch to open the RAM socket. I have two 8GB RAMs. Refer your motherboard manual to insert them in two different channels for parallel performance. You may have to apply some pressure here until you hear a click. For my motherboard, I need to insert the RAMs interleaving a slot for parallel access over two channels. Next, refer your motherboard manual to see how to fix the CPU cooling fan. For my fan, I had to remove the placeholder above and below the CPU socket to screw in the fan. My AMD cooling fan had thermal paste pre-applied on it, so I'm gonna go ahead and screw it down. Carefully tighten all four screws. Now refer your motherboard manual to find the CPU fan header pins to connect the fan. Next, the storage. It's an M.2 SSD. I need to find its compatible M.2 port. I found an M.2 port right below the CPU with a stylish heatsink. I carefully unscrewed the heatsink to reveal the M.2 port. You should hear a click when you insert the SSD into the M.2 port. You could either use the small screws that came along with the motherboard, or put back the heatsink we removed a few minutes back. Unfortunately, my SSD was not detected when I powered on the system. Later I understood that I fixed my SATA SSD on wrong M.2 port. As per the motherboard manual, I should have used M.2_2 port at the bottom. I moved my SSD from M.2_1 to M.2_2 port and it then all worked fine. Hence, it's very important to refer device manual at every step. Now let's attach the power source. First is 24 pin for motherboard and after that 8 pin cable for CPU. In this build, I used the low-cost temporary graphics card to boot up and test the system. I decided to invest in higher-end graphics card only if this basic build worked fine. Especially because this is my first build. Open the notch for the PCI slot and carefully insert the graphics card. This graphics card does not require any additional power supply. Connect the HDMI cable from graphics card to a display. Do a final safety check before you power on. Look underneath the motherboard to remove any conducting substance like screws or metals that could short circuit the board. To boot up the system, we need to short circuit the power button pin and ground. This is because we assembled it outside the cabinet and there are no power buttons attached. Refer your motherboard manual to find out where your power button pin headers are. For me, it's at the bottom right corner. Once it's powered on, you could see the cooling fan started blowing and the RGB RAM started glowing in few seconds. In few minutes, display would turn on and we could see BIOS setup. This means our system boot up worked fine. We then have to validate if all components we attached, such as the processor, memory, storage, etc. are detected and their specifications are correctly detected in the BIOS. Plug in a keyboard and navigate through the BIOS to see if all are as expected. This is the point where I realized my SSD was not detected. It was attached to wrong M.2 port. I took out the SSD from M.2_1 port and reattached it to M.2_2 port. It then worked fine. My SSD from A data was a SATA drive, and it was clearly documented in the motherboard manual. My advice is to review the device manual at every step to avoid such mistakes. Once we are happy with all device detected and working fine, we would move the whole setup into a cabinet in the next video, so stay tuned. If you like my video, please like, share, subscribe and ring the bell.